Rookie minicamp opened in Cleveland this week, and I want to talk about what actually came off that practice field, not the Watson conversation, not the Gabriel trade speculation, not the ownership politics that have dominated this story for months. Real football. Routes being run. Throws being made. Rookies competing for spots on a roster that is genuinely being constructed around a specific vision with a specific quarterback at the center of it. And what the early footage and reports are producing is worth breaking down carefully, because some of what came out of that practice session is legitimately exciting. Before I get into the individual players, I need to establish the proper evaluative frame, because context is everything when you're reading first-day rookie minicamp. This is helmets and shorts, no pads, no live contact, no first-team defense generating authentic pressure and coverage intensity. You are not watching a competitive football game. You are watching a series of controlled drills that tell you something real but limited: athleticism, movement quality, route shapes, release mechanics, and most importantly, who looks like they actually spent their offseason preparing for this moment rather than just showing up, hoping to survive it. Hard conclusions are premature, but real information is available to anyone paying attention to the right things. And what I'm paying attention to today is upside, physical readiness, and the competitive hunger that reveals itself even in the least threatening environments. Denzel Boston is where I want to start, and I want to slow down on this one because the early reporting from that practice is producing a level of enthusiasm that feels grounded rather than manufactured. The physical profile hits you immediately. Long, big, fills out the X-receiver position in a way that Cleveland fans haven't seen at that spot in a genuinely long time. The comparison being made in certain circles is to the Josh Gordon era in Cleveland, a boundary target who could impose his physical will on any route, who gave the quarterback a legitimate red zone weapon and a contested catch threat on any snap. I want to be careful about how far I extend that comparison because Gordon at his peak was a once-in-a-generation kind of physical presence, and nobody should be asked to carry that expectation. But the underlying point, that Boston's physical tools address a specific and long-standing gap in this receiving core, that's not an overstatement. That's just an honest assessment of what this offense has been missing. What matters more to me than the physical profile, though, is the route running sophistication that's being reported from day one. Boston was not running simple go routes and winning on athleticism alone. He was showing route understanding, using his frame to create leverage, setting up defensive backs before his cuts, demonstrating the kind of pre-snap and mid-route processing that distinguishes receivers who can play the position from receivers who are just athletic specimens trying to learn it. That level of route-running intelligence on a first day of rookie minicamp does not happen by accident. It doesn't get installed in 3 days of walkthrough football. It gets built over months of dedicated work on the fundamentals of the position, the kind of preparation that shows up before anyone turns a camera on. Boston came to Cleveland having already done that work. For Shedeur Sanders specifically, this matters enormously. The one element this offense has been most conspicuously missing is a boundary receiver who can win on the outside consistently. Someone who gives the quarterback a legitimate target in tight windows, who can create in the red zone against physical coverage, who defenses have to genuinely account for rather than just shade toward while loading up against the interior. If Boston develops the way his minicamp showing suggests is possible, the combination of his size and route understanding with Shedeur's accuracy and willingness to attack tight windows becomes something defenses genuinely have to scheme around. Cleveland has not had that specific weapon on the outside in years. The early signs suggest they may have found it in the 3rd round. Concepcion is the more nuanced evaluation coming out of this practice, and I want to give you the honest version rather than the cleaned-up one. The hands were a problem. There were drops in this session that have to be addressed before they become a recurring issue. In environments where the pressure is real and contested, catches decide drives. I'm not going to gloss over that, because drops at the professional level aren't just statistical negatives. They erode a quarterback's willingness to go to a receiver in critical moments. They affect play calling, and they create doubt where there needs to be trust. Concepcion's hands have to catch up to everything else about his game, and that is the primary developmental challenge coming out of this first evaluation. But the honest version of this evaluation also includes the other side of what the tape showed, because the route running told a genuinely different story from the hands. The way he's processing his releases off the line, the movement concepts he's using in his route stems, the athleticism and quickness he brings to the position, those elements were positive in ways that suggest real tools to develop. There was a touchdown connection with Tailon Green where Concepcion came open through timing and designed execution rather than pure athleticism. That kind of play, getting open because the route worked the way it was supposed to, not because the receiver outran someone, tells you something more meaningful about a receiver's potential than any combine measurement. Concepcion is a work in progress, but the coaching staff has something genuine to develop if the hands can be fixed. The feet are already doing what you want. The technique and ball handling just need to match. Now I need to talk about Tailon Green directly and address the situation before the wrong narrative has a chance to build momentum. Green made plays in this minicamp. There were moments that generated real excitement from people watching. An arm that has genuine strength, mobility that creates a dimension traditional pocket passers can't provide, the kind of physical presence that makes evaluators lean forward. Those qualities are real, and I'm not dismissing them. What has to be said alongside those qualities is equally real. From the same practice sessions, Green missed throws. He overthrew a tight end. He sailed a ball beyond its intended target on another occasion. The throwing mechanics have a long release that will need significant refinement before it functions consistently under professional pressure, because at this level, a mechanical flaw that costs you fractions of a second gets exploited with ruthless efficiency. None of this is surprising. Green was drafted with developmental upside in a late round specifically because he is a project, a player with a potentially high ceiling attached to a very low current floor. Here is what I need to be direct about, because I already know what's coming from certain corners of this conversation. One highlight play from a helmets and shorts rookie minicamp does not reopen, revisit, or in any way complicate the conversation about who the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback is. Not even close. If anyone in the media reaches for Green's minicamp moments as a vehicle to manufacture uncertainty around Shedeur's position, I want you to recognize exactly what that is. The same pattern of narrative construction that has characterized coverage of this quarterback competition since before it even formally began. Green's ceiling may develop into something genuinely interesting down the road. His physical tools suggest that's possible, but a sixth-round developmental pick still learning to translate his athletic gifts into consistent NFL-level quarterback execution is nowhere near the conversation about Week 1. Shedeur Sanders is the starter. The organization has been building around him with every significant resource decision made this offseason. One good throw in a no-contact walkthrough session changes exactly zero of that. The broader picture emerging from this minicamp is the most important thing to carry away, and I think it's the story that deserves the most sustained attention. Cleveland is systematically adding weapons that are specifically designed to fit what Shedeur Sanders does well and what Todd Monken's offensive system is designed to execute. Denzel Boston provides the boundary weapon and red zone threat the receiving room has been missing. Concepcion brings speed and movement versatility that forces defensive coordinators to make allocation decisions they'd prefer not to make. Spencer Fano is being evaluated as an additional contributor to the offensive line investment that the organization has already committed significant resources to building. These are not random acquisitions filling generic roster holes. These are deliberate developmental investments in an offense being built with a coherent vision around a specific player. What also came out of this practice that matters beyond the individual player evaluations is what it communicates about competitive culture inside that building. First days of rookie minicamp reveal who came prepared and who didn't. They reveal who spent the offseason doing work that nobody filmed versus who showed up expecting to figure it out in real time. The players who arrive at these sessions already physically and technically ready already demonstrating fundamentals that can only be built through months of dedicated preparation, are the ones who give themselves a genuine chance. The players still trying to find their footing in the basic demands of the professional game reveal themselves quickly. From what's coming out of Cleveland's camp, there are players in this rookie class who clearly came with their work done. Boston's route sophistication doesn't develop in 3 days of minicamp. The athleticism showing up across multiple positions was built over months before anyone with a clipboard was watching. That kind of investment showing up visibly on day one is exactly how organizations build the roster depth that sustains competitive success over the length of a full season. I want to pull back even further and look at the full trajectory of what's being constructed around Shedeur Sanders, because I think the minicamp footage is a confirmation of something that's been building for months, rather than a new development in isolation. Every significant organizational decision Cleveland has made since the offseason began has pointed in the same direction. The offensive line investment, approximately $100 million to build a protective structure around a young quarterback who spent his first professional season operating behind one of the worst lines in the conference. The receiver acquisitions designed to give him legitimate weapons, with the route sophistication to create real windows rather than forcing him to win throws in impossible coverage situations. The coaching staff constructed around a head coach who has zero emotional investment in the previous regime's decisions and full authority to build around the player the evidence supports. And now a rookie class showing up to minicamp having done the preparation work that tells you these aren't just warm bodies filling out a 90-man roster. They're players with genuine upside who fit the offensive vision. This is how a franchise quarterback actually gets built around. Not just with the headline additions that generate press conference excitement and social media engagement. With the systematic, patient, rep-by-rep construction of a roster where every position group has competitive depth, where every practice creates real evaluation pressure, where the players fighting for the last few roster spots are invested enough in getting those spots to do the work that nobody acknowledges before camp opens. Cleveland is doing that work right now. The competitive environment being created in that building, where drafted players and undrafted free agents and late-round picks are pushing each other for spots, is exactly the kind of depth that separates teams that are genuinely dangerous from teams that have a good starting lineup sitting on top of a fragile depth chart. This is the difference between a franchise building sustainably and a franchise accumulating individual talent without the organizational infrastructure to leverage it. The rookies are on the field, the weapons are developing, the route running sophistication, the physical tools, the competitive hunger, all of it is visible from the very first day of evaluation, which tells you it was built over months before any cameras arrived. Denzel Boston running routes with the kind of leverage and positional intelligence that only comes from real preparation. Concepcion showing movement qualities that give the coaching staff something genuine to develop, even as the hands require serious work. The entire rookie class competing for spots with the visible urgency of players who understand that opportunities in professional football are finite and that nobody is handing them anything. And at the center of it all, a quarterback who has been waiting for exactly this kind of organizational investment, the real weapons, the real protection, the real commitment, finally starting to see the pieces arrive around him. What's taking shape in Cleveland right now, rep by rep and camp session by camp session, is the infrastructure of a team that is being built to actually win. Not to manage expectations, not to survive a rebuild, to compete. The minicamp footage is the beginning of that story becoming visible to everyone watching.